Good evening, everyone. Today we're on the weightlifting technique video. We're going to talk about going around the knees. This is a really important part of the lift because oftentimes if we get this part wrong, the rest of the first pull can go poorly. So we'll talk about going around the knees and some points of performance and ways to sort of practice it at home or before a class or whenever you have the opportunity. So what are the most important things to think about when we're going around the knees? For both snatch and clean, the major thing is that we want to make sure our shoulders are over, on top of, or in front of, however you want to think about it, and depending on your proportions, the bar. So if I'm going around my knees in a snatch, my shoulders are over the bar. They're out in front of the bar. They're not on top of. This would be more on top, and they're certainly not behind. When we're going around the knees, we want to make sure that our shoulders are not behind the bar and that our weight is evenly distributed throughout our whole foot. If you let your weight sink into the back of your foot, into your heels, often that puts our shoulders behind the bar and makes it harder for us to push with the legs throughout the lift. So for example, if I'm pushing through my whole foot and then I shift my heels, then when I go to stand up, it's going to be like this. And now the bar is really far away from me, and I'm pushing it away rather than going straight up. So point of performance number 2 would be that we want the weight evenly distributed over the whole foot as we pass the knee. We want to go shoulders in front of or on top of the bar, whole foot push through the knee. So I'm moving around the knees, I'm going to push my whole foot, and then I'm going to reach out as I pass my knee. I'm going to reach out further as I pass my knee. That whether or not your shoulders actually move further out in front of the bar is sort of irrelevant. What's most important is that you have that intent to keep reaching rather than allowing your shoulders to retreat behind the bar and thereby letting your back and hamstrings sort of take over on the lift. And the same thing's true for a clean. For a clean, I'm going to push, and as I get to the knee, my shoulders are on top of or nearly in front of. The weight is evenly distributed over my whole foot. This would be back in my heel. See how my shoulders retreat behind the bar and I kind of fall over? I'm going to be here so that when I start to, or I want to be here so that when I continue to push through that first phase of the lift, I can push through my quadriceps and I'm pushing with my knees. I'm not pulling with my back. I'm pushing with my quadriceps here. I'm not pulling with my back like this. So those are sort of the points of the performance. They're pretty straightforward. We want to think about having our whole foot flat on the ground, and we want to think about having our shoulders on top of or slightly in front of the bar for both snatch and clean. Some people run into some issues with scraping knee pads or knee sleeves as you come past the knee. Sometimes you hear that in a competition. You'll hear this sort of telltale scratching sound as the bars come too close or scrape the knees as they're coming up for the first phase of that lift. One of the things that you would want to think about if that's happening to you, if you're hitting yourself in the knee or if you're hitting yourself in both knees, is that you just have to make sure that your knees are getting out of the way of the bar faster. So there are a couple ways to accomplish that. One thing is to try thinking about pushing your shoulders out over the bar and almost pulling your knees back. You don't want to get straight-legged too early. This would be incorrect. But we want to be pulling our knees back and letting our knees kind of come away from the bar as the bar comes into us, and then I can come straight up. So that's one thing to think about. We can think about pulling the knees back faster as we get to them. One good cue is to think about letting the bar chase your knees off the floor. So I'm going to let the bar chase my knees off the floor before I come into extension. Sometimes that works for people, sometimes it doesn't. Another thing to think about is that maybe you're starting with your hips too low. If my hips are really low in my start position, when I go to pull, I'll hit myself in the knee. You see that? So if my hips are really low and I go to pull, I'm going to push the bar into my knee. That's probably the most common issue, I think, if people are hitting themselves in the knee on the way up. I would try a couple of first pulls or that first phase of the lift just from the floor to your hip with a slightly higher start position and see if that helps with the contact at your knee. So when we're thinking about going around the knee, the best way to practice it is to probably just go from the floor to your knee, several times. And that allows us to really feel that full foot pressure rather than coming into the heels and going around the knees that way. So we want to just go floor to the knee, floor to the knee, floor to the knee. And you can do that several times with a barbell without anything. Sometimes you can just practice it here, floor to the knee, floor to the knee. And if you did it incorrectly, it would look like this, right? I'm coming, my toes are up, I'm leaning back. We just want to practice coming floor to the knee and keeping that full foot pressure that whole time, making sure that we're feeling the lifting through the quadriceps, through the big muscles in the front of our legs rather than our hamstrings and our glutes and our low backs even. So once again, we're just thinking about making sure that as we come off the floor, our knees are getting back and away from the bar, our shoulders are on top of or in front of the bar, and that will allow us to transition correctly into the extension portion of our lift. That's it for this video on going around the knee. I don't want to do too much. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments or send me a message. Thanks for watching.